Hi. Hi, you made it, Leah. How are you?
I'm good.
So I reached out to you, I feel like a year ago or something, but when my sister and I were doing this past year of How to Survive the End of the World podcast, our focus was survival. Everything was about survival. And you're one of the people who regularly was showing up in my feed, like just dropping these beautiful gems about survival and indigenous worldviews. And every time I heard you speak, it would like settle my system and ground me. And I was like, I think you know something about how to survive the ends of worlds and how to keep going. So I reached out to you way back then, and then life got all lifey life, and we weren't able to get it in while we were still doing that season technically. But I was like, but I still really want to talk to you. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to converse with each other, and then we will do a follow up, not a follow up, we'll do sort of a bonus episode so that can also go in our podcast feed. Um, and but I like doing it sometimes here on Instagram where people can kind of see and feel the conversation as well. Because especially when it's truly new like this, where I'm like, we're really going to be saying hello to each other in this timeline of the universe for the first time.
Yeah.
So the first question I almost always ask people is, how are you doing right now today? Um, at this moment, you know, and maybe also where in the world are you howling from?
So where I am is Wurundjeri land in the Kulin Nations, in the southeast of the continent that people know as Australia. That's
Mhm.
where I am. And when I am is every when, which is a concept that comes from First Peoples here. This idea that all the time that ever existed and all the time that ever will exist is right here and now. And how I am is I think I'm probably how a lot of people are. I'm so many things all at once, and it's
Yes.
overwhelming, and it's enlivening, and it is terrifying, and it's
Yeah.
also just here. So, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
I've just been I've just been at practice with my community at Fatele practice, which is our communal dancing and singing, because on Saturday, in 2 days' time here, it's our independence celebrations for our nation. And so,
uh-huh.
yeah, for all of the chaos in the world, I feel like one of the most privileged people ever, because I just
Mm.
sat with members of my community and we sang and we lifted our voices and we made sounds and we danced and we giggled and we ate food. And we've always done this. Indigenous people have always done this. My community are, I mean, to tell you the quality of the joy is to first say that my community, Tuvalu, is a very, very small nation in the Pacific Ocean. And we are
Mm.
currently all evacuating our homes slowly over the coming decade.
Uh-huh.
Um, we are leaving because of climate change. And
Mm-hmm.
so
And is
this
this because of
independence
sea
thing,
levels rising? Is that
yeah,
the main impact for you? I'm so sorry.
yeah, it's an unimaginable grief,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I share that as part of telling you how I am, because how I am is in constant grief, and it has been my
Mhm.
whole life.
Mhm.
And I just sat with my community and we lifted our voices, and my children are surrounded by people who speak their language, which is the language of our ocean for so many, many, many generations. And I know that our community will continue to, um, speak our languages and sing our songs and dance our dances. as Indigenous communities all over the world always have, and
Mhm.
know something about surviving apocalypses and know something about carrying forward strength. And yeah, so that's how I am. I am utterly devastated. I can't even find words for the type of grief that I sit with. And
Yeah.
I'm filled with hope in ways that are indescribable, because we will continue just as we always have, because how could we do anything else?
Yes. Beautiful. I have so many questions from your how are you, but first I'll tell you how I am. Too. So I am in my home, which is in Durham, North Carolina, which is I'm a displaced African American mixed race person. And so for most of my life I grew up like home was wherever I was. Home was where my family was. But as I got older, I started to get really curious. Like, but really, where did we come from? And like, where were we shaped? And both of my parents come from the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina. And the Deep South was in the US was someplace I never thought I would live. It always felt like it would be too closed to all the things that I am. But the land underneath it all was always calling to me. I would land and my feet would feel like they were opening up and rooting in, like just without me asking. It was just like, whoop, this is it. This is where we're supposed to be. So I've moved back and it's, yeah, it's been really incredible. Like I also feel constant grief, like constant, overwhelming, sometimes debilitating grief. Um, but then, yeah, the hope I feel comes up from the land. So I'm coming out. Like I spent the weekend. I got to go see a beloved friend's show, which was a precise intervention on capitalism that was just so brilliant, incredible. It's called "We Come to Collect." I posted about it already in my feed, and then I got to go into Sweat Lodge, into ceremony, and pray for the land, with the land, from the land. And I have a whole circle community here that is starting to be in practice with each other. And it just is like, oh, right, like underneath all of this chaos of humanity, the earth is this steady, present, loving, abundant force still. And it's I can relate to her. It's like I'm like, oh, I can be in a relationship with you directly and communally. And there's something that happens in the darkness of that kind of prayer, where you're just like in the dark, in the heat, where all the voices become one and all the prayers become one. And yeah, it's just been very moving to remember, to be like, oh, right, like something in my system remembers this way of praying and needs this. I need to be with others in the dark praying. So that's been, the energy that has flooded into my week. It's like, oh, right, like I'm a praying woman. And like, I think my whole life I've been a praying woman trying to figure out like, who do I pray to? Because the individuals that I was given to pray to didn't quite make sense to me. But this universal life force feels like every conversation is automatically prayer, and I understand it. And so yeah, that's the energy that I've been moving through this week with. It's feeling pretty good. And that in those small step ways. And then on a grand scale, I'm watching the global Samud flotilla make its way to Gaza and watching all these different nations step up and say, okay, it's time. Like we're gonna send our own ships. For Italy and now Spain have both said we're gonna send Navy ships, and we're gonna send. And I'm like, okay, this like global movement is having a growth spurt, and we need it, and it's like late and fast, and like it needs to come right now. So those that fills me up too, to just see that courage being responded to by those who actually have some of the capacity to make an impact, make this impact grow. So I don't have this experience often on the internet where I'll be like scrolling and then someone's just talking at me and I'm like, yeah, I just trust it. I trust you. you know, um, like, a lot of times I'm sort of like, Why do you think you get to tell me things? Or like, in the same way I question myself. Like I'm very self-critical all the time. I'm like, do I have the right to tell people about this, or from what root system am I offering some wisdom and trying not to just be like a smart kid who can figure it out in my head, but like always trying to be like, let me tap into something longer. So you're one of these people who, from the very first time I saw you speaking, I was like, I trust you. Why do I trust you? Like, what's up with you? Like, who? And I was like, but I feel like I really trust your wisdom source. So I think the first question I wanted to ask is, how do you root your knowledge? Like, what's the sort of backstory or tale of how you know what you know?
Mm.
Mm.
I think often about two inheritances.
Mm-hmm.
One, and I usually put them with the body. So feet for me is where my feet are.
Mm-hmm.
And my belly button is
Mm-hmm.
where all of my people have been.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I think about the inheritance of all of our ancestry and our legacies and everything that ever existed so that we are now. And I
Mm-hmm.
think about everything that has ever happened in this place where I am. And it's interesting because where you are knows me, might remember me. I've only been through there very briefly.
Oh, but you walked
And
this land.
I did a very quick tour there all the way up in 2007, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in North Carolina, and I remember because of the James Brown song, and he sings, goes through all of the airports, all of the train line. But it's really interesting. What's even more interesting, but I'm going to stop being surprised by these things, is once I was sitting in a session with somebody who was in North Carolina. And I said, I'm in Melbourne. You might know this place as Melbourne. And they go, oh, I lived there for a little while. And I
Uh-huh.
said, oh, this place knows you.
Uh-huh.
And tears came to both of us immediately.
Yes. No,
Just
it's
at the
really beautiful.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm really glad you know kind of what it smells and feels like here. I'm gonna make
Yeah.
my way your way as well. I have like a short list now of the places that I'm like, I still haven't experienced everything I need to experience, obviously, on this earth. But where you are, your part of the world is actually like at top of that list of places I'm like, I still want to come. And, my parents were stationed in the Marshall Islands in the South Pacific. That's as close as I've come, right? And it was complicated. It's, anytime we're talking about military being stationed somewhere, it's a complicated relationship. But there's also part of me that's like, oh, the ocean here really knew me and made me feel welcome and at home. Um, and yeah, so I'm like, I need to complete the journey and come all the way and see it. Okay, so the root system, the feet, the belly button, your lineage, and the land that you're on is where you're rooting yourself. Um, I would love for you to answer this question that my mentor used to ask everyone. So Grace Lee Boggs was a mentor of mine who I got to befriend and study with and learn from in Detroit for about the last 10 years of her life. We're actually coming up on 10 years of her ancestry. So, is sweet because I'm imagining her same energy, but like as a 10-year-old spirit child, which is like, has been giving me a lot to smile about. But she would always ask this question, what time is it on the clock of the world? And I wonder if you could tell us from your vantage point, what time is it on the clock of the world? Small
I
questions. That's what I thought. All small questions.
Oh no, I appreciate being asked this question by I think someone who probably has a similar answer to me, which is I think we're in transition and transitions are hard. And one of the best things I've seen on this app in the last few years is there was a woman, American woman, I believe, who's a midwife. I don't know if you saw this, and she was talking about how globally
Transition.
doulas and yeah, like incredible. And she was talking about transition and how when a person's in labor, yeah, just before it's time for the baby to come is this period of, of just, I can't go on. And the verbal
Yep.
cue that people listen to is, I can't do this.
I can't do it. Mm-hmm.
And the reason that that's significant for me is because when I was in labor with my first child, who's now 20, she's about to turn 21.
Wow.
When yeah. And my other little one's about to turn 18.
21.
Thank you.
18. Wow, you raised grown-ups. That's awesome.
Yeah. Really cool grown-ups too. But when I hit transition and, my mum was in the room with me and my ex, and my mum is Irish and my father is Chihuahua.
Maybe we're related. Oh my gosh.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
your story. I'm sorry. I'm just like, why do you feel like so sister? Okay. Great.
I've been raised like, honestly, someone said to me, I will get back on track, but someone said to me 5 years ago in the middle of lockdown and lots of sort of resistance things that were happening over our local town. They were like, I just want to hear you in conversation with Adrienne Ray Brown. And I was like,
really?
Okay. And I started looking and reading more of your and engaging with more of your work. And I was like, yeah, that'll happen. That makes sense to me.
Oh, see, what's reaching for you? You're reaching back. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here we are. I hope they're happy.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in transition. Your mom is there.
Transition. My mom is there. Obviously there's like midwives and stuff there. And I call my dad. And we'd had quite a tense time in the lead, finding out that I was pregnant when I was a teenager and I wasn't unmarried and,
all the fun
and
stuff.
all the fun stuff. And so, yeah, that had been really difficult. And I'm going to cry saying this, but I called him and I was like, I can't do this. And he said, every single woman up your line has done this before you and they're with you. Every life that is with us is because of this phase,
Yes.
And I can't remember what else he said, but he just connected me into the legacy, into this enormous timeline where the inevitability of this life bursting forth was just so clear.
Yes.
And I think that might have been the cracking open of this work. I often count this work as old as my firstborn. So I find transition to be, it is so painful that it forces us across bridges and it forces us into these things that we didn't imagine we were able to do, and like calling my father, like reaching back through time, like repairing, like all that, I had been removed from. And so I think that's where I think we are. We are in transition and it is going to get so much worse before it gets better. And my community and I and many other low-lying nations and many other lands and peoples who are so annihilated by climate change have been talking about this for decades and decades, since invasion. And I think perhaps I think I know something about transition because of that. I live as a settler. I was, put into the position of settler on stolen land. And I know that I'm living, like I'm essential to this system to interrupt and replace the people who know this place and all of her stories. That is what is done to me. And all settlers and my children were born on this land with no name and no belonging to her,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I feel like there is, that's the time I think we're in transition. And I think grief preparedness is one of the most important things that we can do so that we don't get knocked around by the annihilation and we hold strong to what needs to be preserved for whoever makes it to the other side,
Yeah, I do agree with you, Leah. And thank you for the tenderness of, your story, I'm thinking of your teenage self, like drawing on that lineage wisdom to make it through that moment. And in some ways, even that part feels really prescient, like, because I do think we're so young, like we think we know so much and we think we've been around so long, but still, I think our species must be young because of how we're behaving. Like the tantrums, the isolation, the behaviors are teenage behaviors, puberty behaviors. And that's the time when we most need unconditional love, like a sense of possibility beyond this, you know? So, I think of other transitions, I have witnessed. Like I've worked as a doula. You may know that or not know that, but I worked as a doula, and it's actually kind of my favorite moment. That moment when it happens, to be someone who's in the support role and just like, yes, what you're going through is absolutely unbearable. I can't take that away from you. I wish I could. And also, it's the data that everyone needs, that you need, that the baby needs. Like it's the sign of it's there's no going back. There's only forward, and there's only like completion of this labor. And I think the same thing happens in that transition of teenagers. That it's like you don't want to have acne, and you don't want your mom being what to do, and you don't want to, you're being a mean girl in school or whatever's going on, and still you're going to have to move through this phase that you might not want to even live through. I know so many young people right now who are struggling to keep the tether with life while they're looking at all this apocalyptic change around them. And I'm like, yes. And the thing that we have to believe in is that what is coming is life. And so it's worth this pain to know that life is out ahead of us. And um, to know that, it's like if you push right now, like you join the goddesses, you join the gods, you join the creators, you join the lineage of all those who let life pass directly through them. Um, and if you, as a teenager, can surrender to some support, you don't have to be alone in the journey. Like I always, I brag on my mother a lot because I'm like, I had a really good mom. I have a really good mom. But like as a teenager, I'm like, she was really good with all my rebellion, just being like, I see you and I may have to punish you, but also like, I really see you becoming yourself. And that's interesting to me. Or I see you coming out of a closet and what's it like, and there's just this curiosity energy. I think the doula role always has to have like that curiosity and that sense of possibility. And it's hard to be in the space where I think we're both having to be doulas and also in labor and also grieving. Like it's all in one mind and one heart with one body and in one community. It's like all of those things are always all happening at the same time. So, what Indigenous wisdom feels at the forefront for you, um, and what you want to offer to folks right now around, yeah, how do we embody survival? How do we embody earthlingness?
Ooh, I think a lot of the work is to remember.
Mhm.
I don't think that what we are moving towards is new. I think we are removing layers of protective material built up over generations of exposure to these annihilating systems. Um, I often talk about repairing time, in that we are moving from almost monologue to multi-log. So one conversation in one direction to many conversations in every single imaginable direction, which is what an ecosystem is when it's
Yes.
intact.
Yes.
And so a lot of the work I find myself, I mean, it's all the same work. I imagine you find it similar, whether it's death and dying processes, whether it's teaching, parenting, running strategies in institutions and across industries, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same work. I am working against the false belief
Mm.
that we can only do one thing at a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Mhm.
And so it's really hard to explain these things. I weave a lot, like to help
Ah,
people understand so people can touch and feel and, put the oils of their hands onto the material.
uh-huh.
But I often use weaving to show that you can think something is broken, but if you have lots and lots of different little connectors, you only need one through line
Yeah.
in order for everything that was before to come through to keep it going. We just need to keep moving, keep the movement moving, keep the movement moving.
Yeah.
And so those of us who are in immense pain, who can feel and see and are so worried and urgent and distressed,
Yes.
it's quite likely that we are feeling all of that pressure of the through line in our bloodline, or in our community.
Yes.
So the reason that so many things feel so painful, I think, a lot of the time is because we're looking around for answers and for our rights,
Yeah.
and we are not looking inward and remembering our responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one puts us in a begging position. Yeah.
Yes.
In a
Always
grabbing and
powerless.
grasping. Yeah.
Mm.
And one puts us into that magnificence of, I matter to people. I matter to this land. I'm being witnessed by my descendants and my ancestors and the earth under my feet and the sky above me all at once.
Yeah.
This.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I'm this
Yeah.
terrible
No, it's awesome.
podcasting material, but I'm just pointing to a weaving above
You,
me. I'm like, it's just
you know what we'll do? I'll have you take a picture of yourself after, and then when we post it, we can post it so people can see the weaving. So I always do the same thing. I'm like, oh right, no one can see me. They keep trying to everyone keeps trying to convince us to do like the video podcast or visual, and I'm like, it's a podcast. Like respect the audio. But anyway, no, but I think what you're saying, it really resonates deeply with me. Like when we're truly faced with annihilation, truly faced with genocide, truly faced with devastation, despair. Like it's not theoretical. It's not only happening to someone far away. It's all coming closer and closer. That pressure of like, you don't get to be a outside observer. Now you are responsible. You've always been responsible, but now you can't ignore that you're responsible. And I think I've been watching so many people have this awakening. My whole adult life has been that. Like I'm obsessed with awakening. I'm obsessed with like the moment someone moves from thinking they are an observer and that or that they are a victim or that they are just like I have to ask someone else who has power to give me a little bit, and that moment of awakening of like I have power, we have power inherently, we have a right to live and exist inherently, we are valuable inherently, we are miraculous, like that awakening. I'm just like, oh, that's the birth that I'm always trying to attend. And then I think there is uh, this challenge all the time of like how to bring joy into that, even inside the devastation, even inside the despair. Like that's why I try. I'm like when I tell news or when I share what's happening in the world, I try to share like here's who's doing things about it. I keep uplifting the flotillas because I'm like, oh, the fact that a flotilla is happening means that our humanity is still intact. Someone is still taking responsibility for holding that. And in my mind, I'm like, I want the flotilla to then somehow magically fly to the Congo and the Sudan and come to you. Like, I'm just like, I want us to be this sort of band around the world that is coming and showing up for each other. And I think this leads me to my next question because I'm always trying to figure out the balance between showing up responsibly for our local work and also showing up responsibly for our inevitable global interdependence and interconnectivity. And I I feel like Indigenous wisdom and Aboriginal wisdom is one of the places where I'm like, oh, y'all really seem to understand this because I struggle. I'm like, well, how do we have enough time to root as deeply as we can locally and also be accountable for the impacts that we're having around the world. And, sitting where I sit in the belly of the beast, it's like, should all my attention be on trying to stop the harm that my nation is doing? Um, should half of it be there and half of it be on what I'm growing locally? Should all of it be on what I'm growing locally, trusting that like empires collapse because they're so top heavy and that's not my work? Like how to balance all of that. And I wonder if you can speak to that a bit.
So I've found out recently that I probably fit very well, not recently, over the last maybe 5 years, about with ADHD. Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And all sorts of neurodivergence, obviously.
Yes. Yes. Same.
But I think I actually am gonna forget, which is terrible. But the so my children are Māori as well as being Tuvaluan. So we live here on Kulin lands as settlers, and we're Indigenous to other places. So for us, Tuvalu, and then also for my children, Aotearoa or New Zealand, they're Māori as well. And they're learning so many different languages. We have children from the Horn of Africa, from the Pacific Ocean, from Ireland, like in our family, we've just got so many babies. That in the Māori language, which is an Indigenous language, which means that it's a threat to the empire imposed on the land, And so Indigenous languages globally have been targeted as one of the most dangerous, ungovernable things for empire. And so I have to say this part. Māori people in the 80s and early 90s fought, I'm going to cry, fought around kitchen tables, and in government houses and within their own communities and families about whether or not it was safe to speak the language, whether or not it was now. Can we do it? Can we do it yet? Can we have this back yet? And people, like everywhere else, like here on this land and on that land you're on, these language revival practices are essential. And this kind of partially answers your question as well. Like, how do we do everything all at once, And I often think, I just want a language with which I can speak my humanity and be understood by this land and hear hers,
Yeah.
To the extent that last week I was rereading a Billy Ray Belcourt poetry talk, and they have this poem, and in it there's a line that says, "Sometimes I cry in Indian, and it sounds like I'm speaking English."
Oh, wow.
And I cried for the entire afternoon. Like Friday was a write-off because it's that one line.
Yeah.
So
what a good poem does. Yeah.
Yeah, right? But coming back to language, and this is why Indigenous language is so important. In the Māori language, there is new language being, they're emerging all the time. And there are these two words, and I've forgotten the one for ADHD, but the one for takiwātangi, I believe it is, for autism. And it means in their own time and space.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That resonates. Oh, yes.
And then the word for maybe some extraordinary Māori person in the comments can put these in the comments. The word for ADHD I've forgotten, but it translates to in many places at once.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So it's like embracing that aspect of ourselves as multi-locational is part of balancing between the here and the there, or the isolation and the togetherness, the local and the global.
Yeah, I think, somehow there are these, it's like the Indigenous logic flips everything for me. There are these two pathologies in a colonial world that are understood in their strengths, and there's obviously spectrums, and it's really complex, and it's more complex than I'm giving it time and space for. But Um, I just love that flip. And so for me, everything comes back to time and space, the
Yes.
trouble of time and space. And I think so much of this work is about repairing time. And what I find myself doing now is, moving away from clinical practice into communal and resistance, and then into, I'm still finding my way in this ever moving space. But I find that, yeah, time space is one of the most important things that we need to understand, because the colonial imposition of linear urgent time
Yeah.
is, it's like a terror. It terrorizes our systems.
That's right.
And I often think that we can do cruel things to people. We can survive being cruel to others when we perceive that they are far away from us in identity or in time or in space. So like
Yeah.
Palestine is all the way over there from here, and Tuvalu is all the way over there, or,
Yes.
Congo is all
Yeah.
the way over there.
Yes.
And 1950 was way back then, 1948,
Yes. Yeah.
1788 was way ages ago, right? And also
Right.
my descendants, they won't be here for like another century. So they can't see
Yeah.
what I'm doing. They can't see all of the ways that I'm just indulging in this,
Yeah.
inflammation of the world.
Yeah.
So I think there's something about time that has a lot to do. And I'm a very urgent, intense person. I have my whole own lived life of things that I'm recovering from at the same time as I'm healing and moving. Um, but I really feel like time, and there's a practicality to time travel, that is not a fantasy. It is, when I bend down to kiss the face of my tantruming child,
Yeah.
I know that I am bending down to kiss my own 10-year-old or 5-year-old or 3-year-old face.
Yeah.
And I am bending in the way that I hope my descendants are received and nurtured and held. It's this through line up and down a bloodline or a legacy.
Yes.
So a lot of the work, and I don't know if this even answers what we're kind of exploring here, but I just keep thinking, if people understood that someone's done this before, it might not be this exact version, but there have been wars before, there have been disasters before, there has been the ends of worlds before. Who do you know that knows something about that, and go and ask them?
That's right.
And then who do you know that's coming towards this experience? And what would you like to let them know?
I love that. I love that. And actually, it very much feels like, for me, it answers the question. I think what I hear inside of it is, because we understand, or we can liberate ourselves from a linear, urgent sense of time, and then we can understand that everything we're doing is all time, is all places, it's all concurrent. That there's a way then that we can know that any action that we're doing authentically, with the spirit of learning, with the spirit of repair, with the spirit of connection, that any action we take, whether it be focused locally or focused globally, whether it be focused on reacting to crisis or growing or building something, or focused inward towards our growth, or even towards family, or focused outward towards a stranger or a group of strangers somewhere. It's like, it's about the spirit with which we do that thing that allows us to connect with all who have done that thing, and all who need that thing, and all who will do that thing. And so then, that, I think that very much deeply aligns with how I've been approaching trying to find this balance, is that I'm like, oh, my goal is not to try to fix anything that's happening elsewhere, but really to try to repair in myself, with myself, my relationship to the land, and trusting that in a nation that is so disconnected from the land, and so disconnected from its impact on the land, that, like, it is fugitive and rebel to then say, oh, I'm going to do this here, and then I'm going to become a part of a community that is doing it all over this place, and letting that be the viral nature with which we move, and letting, my connection globally be much more about asking questions together, rather than, I don't know, I just have set down the part of me that's like, here's the answer, somebody somewhere. Like, I'm like, honey, I don't know. All I'm trying to do is figure out how to grow this lavender and grow something that is edible and and trying to understand what the land wants me to write down. Um,
Mm.
and that feels like my important work. And I know that it's like when I hear from someone like you that you're like, yes, this is how I'm relating to it. I'm like, okay, beautiful, because there's something about the depth and the presence that you bring to the work that's like, oh, that time travels to me. Even in the smallest way, that's like we're both existing on the same day, but like in such different variations of it and such different experiences of it, the northern, the southern. There's just so many different ways of holding. Like this is the same day, but you couldn't necessarily tell that from anything that we're actually experiencing, from morning till night, except
Mm.
the common news that we're hearing from this common language, which may or may not. It's like, what if I didn't know English? I think about this all the time. I'm like, what if I just didn't know? What if that wasn't in my mind at all? Like, how would I understand what's happening in the world if if colonization hadn't occupied my mind, right? And can I, with this language, still understand what's underneath colonization, what's before and after colonization? Um, so that kind of brings us into this very present moment where we're using this social media platform to have this conversation with each other. And we have both used this platform to do some of the teaching that we do in the world, some of the sharing, some of the exploration, some of the offer. And I've really been wrestling with it. Like I will post stuff here. The other day I posted, a collection of memes, and I had people come in and be like, this is the only reason I'm still on here. This is why I'm here, like this kind of feeling. And I was like, I felt so guilty. I felt so guilty because I'm like, I don't think that this is a good space. Like I think all of these platforms are so compromised and so dangerous and so plugging us into capitalism and plugging us into a cycle of despair and divisiveness, and making it normal. So I see it seeping into all the movement work here, is that everyone is orienting towards each other like a cancellation online or like an enemy that it's like, how do I make you my enemy? So I really struggle. I sometimes I just am like, I'm going away from here. And then I'm like, but how do I reach as many people as possible with what this message is that just came up through the earth? Or the storm just taught me something. I need to like share it. So I wanted to ask you how you're navigating that piece of it. Because for me, it's like, oh, I do my deep local work. And then this is one of the ways in which I let it then reach out, to people that I may never meet, but I'm also comrades with, like yourself, right? Like I would have never found you. I don't know. Maybe that's my story. Maybe that's just my story. Also, my story is, how would we find each other if it wasn't for this thing? Um,
Mm.
but yeah, anyway, all of that is a question I think that you can hear.
Yeah, I'm sure we would have found each other. I'm sure. I think I
Okay. Seeing your
remember.
faithfulness, you would have found me and I would have found you.
I
Okay.
This place is just bizarre to me.
So,
So the thing that I'll say is like yeah, I think I had something like 100 followers, right?
yeah.
On this account. And I
Yeah.
hated having this account. I just put it up because I was doing a little bit of therapeutic work. And so I had this separate account for my business.
Mhm.
Um, and I never I'm not a very good business person. I'm not interested in business. Business is
Me
antithetical to
either.
the way to the way
Yeah.
that I am trying to build community.
Yeah.
I often talk about the fact that money at the threshold of this work destroys the work that of people moving themselves across the line to it.
Yeah.
And when I first sort of sat down and thought, okay, I know something about this, and I must name my sources. The one thing that I didn't say when I was talking about where I am and when I am is that for 4 years I taught in the youth prisons, the children's prisons in this state.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I was part of a movement of bringing in, culturally responsive practice and pedagogy into into, one of the most horrific parts of empire. And I went in as a savior. I went in, despite all of my being raised well by community, I still thought that I had something to give these young people. And I learnt through them and through their stories just the depth and breadth of what gets tucked away and hidden out of sight in empire. The children in the cupboard, it's the sharpest, pointiest part of colonization that gets hidden away once the institutions are established. And no one really wants to look there, no one really wants to look or tell people about humans that they know there. And it was in that environment that I learned about love, that I learned about hope, that I learned about dignity. And yeah, so I can't remember your question anymore because I can't think and talk about the young people that I've had the pleasure of
about social media.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. So social media. So when I first came to social media and I was thinking, okay, I think I know something about this. And this is just after October 7th. And the reason that I knew something about this is because I know what annihilation feels like from being a Tuvaluan person.
Yeah.
And I know where annihilation is hidden in settler colonies. And it looks the same and it feels the same and the texture is the same. And prisons here are filled with children that trace all of the global wars and invasions from all over the world. That's the layers of migration that happen and have happened since the establishment of this colony. So thinking about social media, coming back to that, I really, really struggle with exposure. I didn't want to do that. I'm going to be honest. I didn't want to do this live.
No, I see. Because I was like, I know you want to talk to me, but maybe not in front of people.
And it's not because I'm not nervous about what I say, and I'm not, I'm not shy or anything. Yeah. The volume of exposure feels so massive, But because of what those young people taught me and what I know, how could I not say, hey, if people are feeling like this, these things might be a better way of thinking about what you're looking at. And that's because that's what my mentors did for me when I was absolutely kicked in the teeth from the reality that I was presented with when I walked into that prison for the first time. And I will never recover from that. And I hope that I never recover. Yeah. And I just say, until the land is free and the prisons are empty, it is unacceptable to me that they exist,
Yes.
So that was what pushed me into this space. I thought, no, I know something about this. It's a responsibility. So all right, I'm going to just share some stuff. And if it eases people's worlds and their life, and if it helps them in their resistance and healing work, beautiful. Right. And if not, that's fine. I'm just a weird person on the internet, another weird person on the internet. And so I sat down with some friends of mine that knew a lot about social media, and they ran accounts, and they were like, here's what you want to do. And, they explained like all sorts of stuff, And I was just like, oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm like, can I just...
I could do any of those things you think.
Like, can I just speak from my belly and say the thing that I feel like people are aching for? That's as much as I can manage. And they were like, oh, okay. And I just did it, and I just kept doing it. And the reason that I have so much hope is because this, despite everything, this is such a powerful data set for me. People often find themselves in spaces that I run or in community with me, and they say, I don't know why, but when I listen to you talk, I cry. I'm like, oh, that's not on me. That's your evidence,
Yeah.
There's
your evidence, but also there's something about, I mean, there's resonance. So I think of it like that's your evidence. Like there's something in you that can feel the aliveness in me. And there's something in me that spends all of my time cultivating that aliveness, right? And I was given that instruction very early in my life, like cultivate your aliveness, stay deeply connected to what makes you feel alive. That's going to serve your work in ways that I didn't understand, but that's what's going to be at the heart of it. And it's amazing. I think that's the recognition I feel. It's like I'm like, oh, like I can feel the work you're doing when you're not in this space, so that like it's iceberg level, like I'm like, oh yeah, like you're giving us this little taste, but it's got all of this underneath it that's like so massive and precious. Um, and I do think that that data of like people saying like it makes me cry, and it's like, oh, like even if you're offering something that doesn't feel like it's at that level, there's the grief flowing through it. That's like the grief asks me to speak, and the grief asks you to listen, and the grief only releases when we are connected. It's like I notice that I don't grieve alone. Like I'm like when I'm like I go sit by the water, then I grieve. I go sit by the tree, then I grieve. I go sit with a friend, then I grieve. Like what I do on my own feels so uh, not true. Like it's like, oh, I'm never actually by myself doing this. There's always a tree watching me. There's always somebody tending to it. But I want to say thank you. I'm so glad you didn't want to do this, and that we took the time we needed to take for that to move through. And then I was like, I'm not letting go of it, but no rush, but like, let's get here, because it's the same thing. Reason I keep coming here is I'm like, I know in spite of all the hardship of this space, that there's someone or a set of someones who will hear the conversation, who will hear themselves in the conversation or hear some of the medicine that they need in the conversation. And if that's what I'm supposed to do, is get out of the way, in a way, like the ego part of me that is like, it's like, just get out of the way. Like you got the wisdom, pass it on, go back to work, you know? So maybe that's my last question for you is like, what are the other ways that you teach? What are the other ways you are feeling so alive right now? Like, what are the other things you want people to know that you are doing outside of this little square?
Good question. I work at a university in an Indigenous center, and I do all sorts of different things. And I love that work. I love being connected into a global network of Indigenous people and their allies and families and communities. Doing the scholarly work of introducing these ideas into the very places built on top, that tried to annihilate them in the first place. There was something so delicious and cheeky and trickster and it's beautiful, So I really enjoy that. The thing I really love, but I don't want to talk about because but I'm going to talk about it. But so the thing I really love is I wrote a book called Fieldwork, and I wrote it. I didn't write it down. I drew it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The reason that I drew it is because when I was teaching, I would often have groups of people with like reading ages from like so young to really, really high, like university level, or we'd always have guards in the room. It had to be something that engaged everybody,
Everyone.
And I think if I can't put a lesson together that makes everybody in here feel like, oh yeah, I matter in this, then I'm going to throw that lesson out,
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I just drew a bunch of stuff, and I read the book to people over 8 weeks, online in a Zoom.
Okay.
And basically the idea of it is that it's about restoring oral culture. It's about slowly building the skills to say, this is who I am and when I am and where I am. And then here are some of the most important things to me and how you might connect. And then building into how we tell stories and then build and decompressing the whole time our bodies are together in this narrative space. We're decompressing all of the ways that empire is in us, you know. So people aren't actually allowed to tell a story until chapter 6. Because if I ask them to tell it in chapter 1, their masks will tell me something.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I often think about like we have masks for living in the empire that is imposed on humans that are living with land. And it's that simple, and it's not that simple.
Yes. Yeah, no. I get that.
So yeah, yeah, it's really hard to describe. But basically, yeah, I wrote this body of work.
That's something that people can sign up for with you?
It is.
Getting the Zoom?
There's a really long wait list, and I can't get to my emails, and I'm so overwhelmed. But I am slowly getting enough community around me to help me do this thing. I also
maybe you and I can talk a little bit about that. Yeah, maybe we could talk a little bit about that, because I'm thinking about this all the time. It's like the oral component. I've been thinking about it as also songs. Like lately, you know, like I'm working on my next book, but I'm like, so much of it is coming through as songs, and it's like songs where I'm repeating one line over and over and over, and I'm like, you can't do that in a book. Just write. I mean, you could do whatever you want, but just writing one line over and over and being like, you need to chant this until every single one of your cells understands it. And so I could give you a chapter of examples, but really just this is the essence of the thing. But it's also like, that's how whales communicate, is they sing a song and they sing it over and over, and they travel all the way around the world singing one song for like a year. And then they tell each other, that's the news. Everyone needs to know the song. And so I'm like, yeah, there's something about that oral and prayerful and historical lineage thing that, again, when you spoke earlier about the Maori knowing that the language was the rebellion, and in some way, like trying to figure out how to navigate that. I think so much of that right now that I'm like learning how to, as we have always done, learning how to vibrate the truth, transmit the truth to each other in ways that like actually do shake off empire and like shake it, you know, like move it out of the soma, is so exciting. So maybe we can, yeah, talk a little bit about how that could move in the world too. Mostly I think about the bottlenecks that happen, right? When you're like, oh, I've got some medicine and the tools I know to share it are creating a bottleneck. You know, I had started this whole institution, and I was like, this is creating a bottleneck where people are like, in order to get the medicine, I need to go through this bottleneck. And I've been like, oh, no. Like, stop, then I'll figure out a different way to make the offer, because I don't want anyone to who needs it to not be able to just have it, you know? And yeah, so I'm excited that you have it, that you wrote it, that you drew it, that you created that. I'm so excited that you exist and that you're teaching. And I hope this is just our first conversation, you know, like I hope that the universe needs us to keep weaving with each other, because it felt good to me to weave with you here.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a kind of inevitable. I'm sure we'll have many, many more conversations. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you exist. And I just want to thank you, because it feels so lovely to have like a collegial conversation, you know?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have to censor the weight of what I want to talk about. It's just really beautiful. Thank you.
It's really wonderful. Yeah, it's good. And, you know, I keep trying to do this publicly, because this part feel like the art of conversation and how together we go further, or we touch into places where I'm like, if I don't do talks anymore, like where I just stand and talk to people. I'm like, I will only be booked for a conversation, because some things won't come through if I'm just trying to talk it, but it'll always, you know, if I'm like with you, you know, like, oh, now I'm crying for your people. I trust that you cry for my people. I know that we're both oriented towards other things that we're grieving and working on. And that's the aliveness. Like, that's what it's all actually, that's, I think, the only thing we're supposed to do here is be in that connective, alive tissue, you know? Okay, so the thing that's going to happen now, I'm going to save this conversation. I'll invite you if you want to have it also saved on your page. And then I'm going to send it off to my producer, and hopefully we'll be able to develop into a podcast episode as well. So people who are not on these media platforms will also have access to it. All right.
Amazing. Thank you.
I am so grateful for you. Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day, week, month, and till whenever I see you again, all of it.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming and joining us, and pass it on if you enjoyed this conversation today. All right. Bye.
Bye.